afternoon, everyone. And in the words of Cherie, happy Sunday. Um, Late notice getting this out, but it's out. Some of you are here, and if not, you can watch it on replay. Either way is okay. If you are here or if you are lurking, please give it a thumbs up at least, and help me get I don't know, I even hate saying this word, but I guess it's like a big thing for the algorithm or something. I do notice a difference, when folks do the likes and that stuff. So, anyway, today we're going to have, um, I don't even think it's a very long recording. I didn't actually look to see how long it is, but we talked about it and we decided that better late than never, we should start giving you guys some trial testimony about how the different police department systems work. Because we're always talking about CIU and 800 or Unit 800 and Varuna and CAD and AVL. We're always talking about those. And we kind of explain just a little bit what they do, but I don't know if it's really quite enough. So we just decided, you know what, we're going to get the trial, because I knew there was trial testimony of it. I haven't had it way back in the way back time. I didn't have these witness testimonies, but I can get them now. So anyway, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to start with 3. There's a total of 5 that we want to do for you. Today we're going to have testimony from Kalina Groves and testimony from Janet Mansfield. They both work in administration, I guess you would call it. Kalina Groves was in charge of Varuna, the Varuna program or the Varuna system. Janet Mansfield was, am I getting that backwards? CIU. Janet Mansfield was more in charge of CIU, Crime Information Unit, which kind of covered, it also included Varuna, but at any rate, she'll explain in her testimony what that is. And then Joe Hill, I think some of you may have heard us talk about Joe Hill being the one that Kim Davis always references in her police reports as being the one who she would call or whatever to get AVL information, AVL maps and stuff from. So hopefully that will help a little bit. I don't know, when we were reading it yesterday, I didn't feel like I wasn't getting what I expected or wanted to get, I guess, from Joe Hill. But I think that we'll get more of that. He'll give you enough to get a good idea. And I want you to pay attention to how he talks about the difference between knots and miles per hour, because I know he does cover that in his testimony. And I think I've mentioned before how frustrating it's been because the prosecutors will use knots and miles per hour interchangeably like they're the exact same thing. But Joe, not a huge difference, but when somebody's life is on the line, every second counts, in my opinion. So at any rate, you'll hear about that from Joe Hill. And then next time we'll have testimony from Ryan Boxwell, I think is his name. He's a captain in the Spring Lake Division, which is where Daniel, his location was. And then also Captain Vance Allen, who was also a captain, or who was also in the Spring Lake Division. But those will be next week or the week after. Anyway, and their testimonies are a bit longer and a little bit more in detail, and they do talk about all these different systems as well. So Before we get started, though, I want to say good afternoon to Rick and Cherie. How are you? How are you doing today, Cherie?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Good.
My face.
Your
Drinking more
face.
coffee. Feeding my face and drinking
Oh,
more coffee. Yeah.
well, you got to power up for the
Yep. Yep.
show, or the presentation.
Yes. Well, yeah. And while that's playing, I can finish feeding my face in silence and slurping my coffee, and you guys won't have to hear any of it. Rick is busy looking for some information for me, but we want to say hello to Rick. How are you doing today, Rick?
Doing good.
Good. Rick's always doing research of some kind. I want to say while I have a chance, I want to say hello to Muffin Rando. He's in the chat, and just Don just popped into the chat. Listening and lurking is completely fine. That no big deal. So I'm just grateful that you're here and doing whatever you're doing while you're listening. I appreciate it. Um, all right. I think we could probably go ahead and get started if you both are ready to go.
State of Oklahoma versus Daniel Holtzclaw, transcript of the jury trial had on the 5th day of November 2015 before the Honorable Timothy R. Henderson, District Judge in and for Oklahoma County, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
State will call Kalina Groves.
Ma'am, step before me. All right, if you'll have a seat over here in this chair, once you get situated, pull that microphone right around in front of you. If you would state your name and spell it for us, please.
Yes, sir. Kalina Flo Groves. CALENAFLOGROVES.
All right, thank you. Mr. Gieger, you may proceed.
Miss Groves, how are you employed?
I work for the Oklahoma City Police Department as the network analyst.
Are you a civilian employee?
Yes, sir.
How long have you worked for OCPD, ma'am?
28 years.
Fair to say, basically your career.
Yes, sir.
Currently, what is your assignment?
I'm the network analyst for the police department.
Are you familiar with a system that Oklahoma City Police maintains, a database, I believe it is, called the Varuna system?
Yes, sir. I'm the administrator.
And you told me something this morning I did not know. What does Varuna stand for?
There is no acronym for it.
It's just a made-up word?
It's a made-up word.
Just interestingly, why? Why Varuna, if you know, or how did it come about?
I have no idea.
Just been handed down over the years.
Yes, sir.
All right. What is Varuna?
Varuna is the records management system for the Oklahoma City Police Department. We've had it since about 1988.
The jury's heard a little bit about how an actual record or a police report gets made, but from your position as basically supervising the maintenance of this information, right?
Basically, yes, sir.
Okay. What kind of records specifically will be maintained in the Varuna system?
Police records. Anything having to do with stolen property, crimes, anything like that.
We've been using the phrase police reports. Are those interchangeable to a certain degree, or are they different? Is there a distinction?
Ask me that again. I'm sorry.
We've been referring to police reports. Is there a difference between police reports and just all police records?
No, there's no difference.
Okay. Tell us how a police report is generated based upon your understanding, and then how it gets submitted or entered into the Varuna system.
Police officers are sent out on a call or makes a self-initiated contact. During that contact, if he has reason to make a report or make an arrest, he'll ask for a case number. That case number will be entered into the Varuna system, and all of the information will be put in there.
About how many case numbers on average, say, in the last 2 or 3 years get assigned in a year?
I believe we're up around probably in the last 2 years, close to between 250 and 300,000.
So if you divide that by 365, there's lots of reports coming in every day.
Yes, sir.
All right. And by year, is it basically for the 2014 timeframe, it would be 2014, then a dash, and then a number that goes up to however high it goes up.
Yes, sir.
And are the numbers assigned just sequentially?
Yes, sir.
So January 1st of 2016, we're going to start off with the very first case will be 2016 dash a bunch of zeros and a 1.
Yes, sir.
All right. So if an officer determines that there is sufficient information or sufficient reason to believe potentially a crime has been committed or something needs to be documented, there may be further investigation. They ask for a case number.
Yes, sir.
It's assigned, and then does that officer then generate a report typically?
Yes.
Okay. And how does that happen, or how does the officer do that if you know?
It can either be handwritten on a handwritten police report, or it can be called into the records unit and the data entry clerk will make it.
Can officers type those themselves as well?
They can, yes.
Okay. Can they do that from their police cars?
I believe they can, yes.
All right. So in any event, that officer then, once they have a case number, will be responsible for submitting a report?
Yes.
Okay. After that case number, in my example, 0001, what would his report be numbered as the first report in that case number?
The initial report would be a sequence number of 000, and then after that, it would be 001, and as far as we need to go.
And again, I don't know how detailed we need to get, but the year, the case number, and then there could be more than one report generated in one case.
Yes.
And so then the separate reports that get a number themselves.
Yes.
So year, case number, and then whatever number
Sequence number.
there is.
Yes, sir.
But the first one's going to be number 0.
Yes, sir.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Okay. And then if Detective Davis later would get assigned case number 1 to do follow-up, her sequence number would be 2 or 3 or 4, whatever happens.
That's true.
If the CSI goes out, they're going to have to generate a report, and that's going to be whatever sequence number comes next.
Yes, sir.
That's the way it works.
Yes, sir.
In addition to Varuna maintaining those actual typed and submitted police reports, is there any other information that's contained in Varuna database as well?
Sure. We maintain information in reference to impounded vehicles. There are field interview cards.
Let's talk a little bit about what your understanding of a field interview is and how it gets in the Varuna system.
Field interview is a situation where an officer is going through an area and he may see someone in an area that he doesn't think actually belongs there. They haven't actually committed a crime or done anything, but he will stop them and talk to them and get their information. This becomes really important in cases where maybe the next morning someone's car has been broken into or something. And if we can get the information that there was someone that really didn't belong there overnight, that can be beneficial.
So it's another information gathering mechanism.
Yes, sir.
And that's something that the department has determined is important to maintain in the database.
Yes, sir.
So let's say an officer encounters Gayland Gieger, where he's not, for whatever reason, the officer makes a voluntary contact with me.
Yes, sir.
If the officer wanted to access the Varuna database, can he do that from his police car?
Yes, sir.
How does he go about doing that?
We have at least 2-point authentication to that system. You first have to get into the computer that you're going to use to get into it. And then you log into Varuna itself with a username and a password.
Okay, so the officer has to be set up basically that the database allows him in.
Yes, sir.
That's done administratively with whenever new officers go on?
Yes, sir. I take care of that.
You do that?
Yes, sir.
So he can access that remotely from his police car.
Yes, sir. It's not really remotely. It is on the computer that he's assigned to.
I'm not using the right IT word.
Okay.
But if he's in his police car and his computer is on and he's logged into the system, the database is talking with his terminal in his police car.
Yes, sir.
All right. And so if he types in my name, is that how he would find me? If he would type my name in and he would search that way?
Yes, sir. It's last name.
Okay.
And then the first name and middle name.
So if he verifies who I am by me telling him or looking at my ID, then he can run it?
Yes, sir.
All right. Then the information you've shown me comes up. If I have 15 different case numbers over the years, should they all be there?
Yes, sir.
How far back does it go?
Our system was brought online in either late 87 or first part of 88. There are some reports that were entered in relationship to some important cases from previous to that.
All right, but basically back to the late 80s?
Yes, sir.
All right. And I apologize if I may have asked you this. You told me that an officer can either type it in or a data clerk will type it in for them as far as the police report goes.
Yes, sir.
Do you know how the field interview contacts get entered? Is it the same way or is it different, or do you know?
The field interview cards are sent to briefing stations, and the briefing station secretary is most normally responsible for doing that. I know that in gangs and in some of the divisions, they do that themselves.
All right. And it may be obvious, but a field interview card is actually a little card.
Yes, sir.
And it's something, is it something that an officer then just handwrites and takes notes on?
Yes, sir.
Then a secretary, if that officer turns that card in, then the secretary at the briefing station, her responsibility is to upload it into Verona, the information.
Yes.
So then the next day, in your example, if all that got done timely, they could look and they could see, yeah, we had contact with this person.
Yes, sir.
Is it done timely?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yes, sir.
In this case, ma'am, were you contacted by the detectives and or other people with the police department to look at Verona inquiries or Verona searches made by the defendant?
Yes, sir.
And at some point, did you run a complete list of all the people that Officer Holtzclaw ran during the time he was on the police department?
Yes, sir.
And then did you provide that information to the detectives or the investigators in this case?
Yes, sir.
All right. Whenever you did that, to get that list of everyone that he's ever run, were you able just to hit a button on the database and have the computer give us that information, or did you have to do something different to compile that list?
No, sir. The Verona system is a very antiquated system, and it's not easy to extract information from. I have to make an inquiry to the backside of the system.
Let me make sure that I don't get confused. When you say that it's not easy to extract information, I'm in the police car and I'm logged in and I type in to access it, bring a person up. That's very easy.
Yes, sir.
The kind of information the detectives asked you to get, give me a history of everything that one officer has done, that's more difficult?
Yes, sir.
Want to make sure? Go ahead.
Okay, so I request the information from the backside where everything is stored. It comes up in a format with a lot of information on it, and I have to enter search strings requesting specific data to be able to pull that out.
And were you able to do that?
Yes, sir.
And were you also able then to produce the list, or at least the names of the people that Officer Holtzclaw ran during his tenure on the police department?
Yes, sir.
And how did you compile that list actually physically to get it on a piece of paper?
I cut and copied that information from the extract that I get and put it into a Word document.
Okay, basically you put it into a word processor.
Date, order, yes, sir.
And is it just basically a date, the identifiers that it was Officer Holtzclaw making the inquiry, the search?
Yes.
The terminal that basically he used to different computers, whether they're in a police car or the police station, has terminal identifiers?
That's correct.
So we could figure out where he was whenever they actually ran the search. That information is...
They can figure out what computer he was using.
That's what I meant to say.
Yes, sir.
In a police car, it could be anywhere, but we know he's using it from that police car.
Correct.
Okay. Then the person they ran?
Yes, sir.
All right. It's the date, the time, his identifier, and then that other information?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, if it's all right, hang on. May I approach, Judge?
You may approach.
Thank you. Ma'am, I'm just going to hand you, I have not marked this, but I'm just going to hand you this document and see if you recognize what that document is.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that the list you compiled?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'm not going to introduce this entire thing, but defense counsel has said he doesn't have an objection if I can just show the jury generally the format that's used. Do you want me to actually mark it and put it in, or do I have your permission to go ahead and publish it to them as a demonstrative purpose?
I have no objection to him using it as a demonstrative purpose, Your Honor.
All right. Well, if that's how you wish to do it, as just a demonstrative aid to help the jury understand her testimony, you will be allowed to do that.
And so the court will understand portions of this document will be introduced as are relevant, but the entire thing may not be at this point. So I was just hoping to use it that way, if it pleases the court.
All right. Very well.
Thank you. Ma'am, just so the jury can understand, I'm just going to pull a random page out of here. Okay, and just put it up so they can just... And I'm not even going to show you the whole thing so you can read it. I'm just going to get it up to where we can kind of see all the way across at least 1/9. All right. That basically is the information contained in its multiple pages of that information over and over again in that format. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And again, first column is name, second column is the date that the search was run with the time.
Yes, sir.
Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
For example, I'll just point at one. On June 25th of 2013 at 2022, what's that mean?
It would be 8:22.
It's military time.
In the evening, yes.
8:22 p.m. military time. The DH-1782, what is that?
That is the identifier of the officer or the person that ran the information.
Daniel Holtzclaw and the number 1782.
Yes, sir.
And that is consistent throughout this, correct?
Yes, sir.
The next column is what? It's all these, it says LAWM. What does that mean?
That is the Varuna terminal ID that tells us that on the computer that this inquiry was done from, he was using that particular terminal ID.
So whatever computer he was using, that's what this column is telling us.
Yes, sir.
And then is this the individual in this case on June 25th at 2034, he ran someone named Lawrence?
Lawrence.
Frank Grant.
Frank Grant the third.
Third. Lawrence. So last name, first name, middle name?
Yes, sir.
All right. That's what you provided to the detectives.
Yes, sir.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's about 10:30, so we'll take our morning break. I need to admonish you not to discuss the case, not to let anyone discuss the case with you. All right, Mr. Gieger, you can have...
Okay, I wanted to pause this right here before we go on with the next stuff. Rick has something that he's going to explain for us.
I think Muffin's already figured it out. She's an idiot.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Varuna is not a made-up word. Varuna is a records management system that was written by a Hindi guy named Varun Harish. And there's all kinds of different versions of it. They use it in law enforcement. It's used in the military, or was used in the military years ago. They use it in international cargo shipping. They use it in the aerospace industry. Some cities have a version of it to monitor water usage with electronic water meters. There's all kinds of different versions of this software. It's called Varuna because the guy that wrote it is a Hindi. Varuna is the Hindi god of cosmic order and moral law. It's not a made-up word. It's the name the programmer gave to the software.
I just think, well, I think we all believe that she should know that.
She's the administrator of the system. Of course she should. How does she know who to call to get tech support if she doesn't know who wrote the software? If she thinks it's just a made-up thing. You know, the software fairy showed up at the Oklahoma City Police Department and pointed her little wand at the computer and went, poof, you've got a program.
Yeah. So when I first read that and she said she didn't know that it was a made-up word, I was reading it by myself and I was thinking, a made-up word? That just sounded really strange to me, that it would be a made-up word. There's got to be something behind the word. And I didn't look it up. I didn't try to Google it or anything. But then after Rick read it last week or the week before, he said, what is she talking about? It's not a made-up word. And I was like, tell me what it means. If I am like in charge of other people, like if I'm a supervisor or manager, or sometimes even if I'm not, if there's something I don't know or I don't understand, I need to know what a thing is. And if I saw a word like Varuna and I was asking, asking either my supervisors or my coworkers, what does Varuna mean? And they said, I don't know. I would be like, who does know then? Because I want to know what it. And if nobody knew, I'm looking it up. I'm trying to figure out what the hell that means, but whatever. So anyway, that was, Rick gets a little perturbed when he hears idiocracy from some of these people. So I wanted to make sure when he told me that, I was like, oh, well, then you have to explain it to the viewers because they need to know, So thank you for doing that, Rick. We appreciate it very much. Okay, let's see.
Up to however high it goes up.
Yes, sir.
And are the numbers assigned just sequentially?
Yes, sir.
So January 1st of 2016, we're going to start off with the very first case will be 2016 a bunch of zeros and a 1.
Yes, sir.
All right. So if an officer determines that there is sufficient information or sufficient reason to believe potential, and again, I don't know how detailed we need to get, but the year, the case number, and then there could be more than one report generated in one case. Did you rewind?
Yes.
And so then the separate reports that get a number themselves?
Yeah, I didn't mean to rewind, but somehow, because I just paused it where it was. So let me try to figure out. Sorry, guys. Okay, it looks like... That's how we wish to do it. I don't know how that happened. I was like, there's no way I'm that far behind. All right, we will... looks like according to the transcript on the screen that we can start right there.
Cross-examination?
I have no questions of this witness.
All right, very good. Ma'am, you can step down. You're excused.
Janet Mansfield, Your Honor.
All right, ma'am, step right before me. Raise your right hand. All right, if you'll have a seat over here in this chair, once you get situated, pull that microphone right around in front of you. If you would, state your name and spell it for us, please.
Janet Mansfield. JANET MANSFIELD.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You may proceed.
Ms. Mansfield, how are you employed?
I'm in the Crime Information Unit, the shift coordinator.
What's that last thing you just said?
The shift coordinator.
Shift coordinator. I'm sorry.
Yes.
That's a division within the Oklahoma City Police Department, correct?
Yes.
You're a civilian employee?
Yes.
Ma'am, what is the Crime Information Unit and what is it that you coordinate?
We have 16 employees. They do warrant checks. The stolen vehicles, articles, anything stolen, anything put in NCIC, any warrants that the officers call into us, they can call in through the phone or the radio. We get teletypes from other agencies.
Ma'am, at any given time, how many people might be, well, let me rephrase. I think I'm getting ahead of myself. That's what your unit does.
Yes.
How is it that you serve the Oklahoma City police officers that are out on patrol or any other officers that may need your help? How does your system work? What's the give and take that you can provide them, that information you maintain?
The amount of people that we have in the unit is minimum 2. We have 15, actually 16, that are actually employed in the whole unit. We're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What the officers will do is call into us either by phone or radio, and then they will ask us to run checks for them, warrant checks, a variety of things now.
And how is it that the officers can contact your unit? They've heard about computers in their cars. They know that they have radios in the car. What are the other ways they can access you?
They can access us by the radio or by the phone.
Okay, is there a phone number they have?
Yes.
Just on their cell phones they can call.
They usually have us probably quick dialed in, our number for them, and yes, there is. Do you need the number?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
You probably handle enough calls without me calling you. So you have 16 full-time employees, but as you said, you have to staff your CIU unit, the Crime Information Unit, 24/7, correct?
Yes.
Typically, you said you have a minimum of 2 employees at any given time?
Right. Mandatory to have 2. At least 2.
At least 2. Back in the 6 to 7 months from December 2013 through June of 2014, was that still the rule, a minimum of 2?
Yes.
Or was it different?
No, it was the same rule.
Do you know typically for second shift, and by second shift, I'm referring to the time period between 4 p.m. and 2 a.m. Is that your second shift as well?
Our second shift is 3 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Staggered a little bit?
Yes.
Okay. From the time period that the officers are on second shift,
Okay.
from 4 to 2, do you know during that time period what the average was? Did you have 2 people working, or did you have 3, or did it just vary?
It varied.
Okay, can you tell me typically during a shift, how many on average would you say during second shift calls your unit has to handle for police officers across the entire city?
We handle probably about 700 or 800 calls a night per officer. Not per officer, but
Per shift?
per shift.
So it's a pretty busy place.
Yes.
And you got 2 to maybe 3 people handling those telephone calls?
Yes.
All right. Are there times that officers have to wait a few minutes before they can get to them? There's a line, in other words.
Yes, there is.
It's that busy?
It's that busy.
Okay. At some point, ma'am, you were contacted, were you not, to provide some documentation for different activities and times that Officer Holtzclaw might have run someone through CIU?
Yes, since I'm first shift, I did all the pulling of the records.
The detectives and the investigators in this case would call you from time to time over the months and ask for more information, things like that?
Yes.
Whenever officers call in, patrol officers, how is it, if any, do your employees or do your subordinates document the calls and who they ran and what they found, those types of things?
Every time an officer calls in, no matter where they call in from, we write their unit number and what they're requesting us to do.
Okay, so if they call in and they say, hey, I need information about Gayland Gieger, for example, they document that this officer called about this person?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And then what else do they put out there? What else would they document?
From on our log sheet, we have the unit number, what they're requesting us to do, and it varies how they say it, but most of the time it's municipal record, municipal warrants. County warrants, NCIC, which is our national warrants. Sometimes they'll ask us to look in Varuna every now and then it varies from there.
The jury's heard about Varuna, but typically it's run for warrants to see if they have anything outstanding. Would you say that's the majority of the type of inquiries?
Yes.
All right. Ma'am, if an officer calls in and they ask to run a warrant on some individual, and that individual does in fact have warrants of some type, whether they're city warrants or whether they're county warrants or whether they're out-of-state warrants that are in our system, is that noted?
Yes.
All right. Is there any mechanism in place to follow up to see if an officer calls, is told there are warrants? Is there any checking up to see what that officer does? In other words, I want to check up and see if that officer arrested that person or not.
No.
Okay, that's not part of it?
No.
All right. Basically, your department serves to get the information to officers to do with what they choose to do with?
Yes.
All right. Ma'am, I'm going to show you a couple of documents. Again, I'm not going to mark them. This is for demonstrative purposes. But do you recognize these two types of documents?
Yes.
Okay, what are they?
They're actually the same document. It's just one that's handwritten and one's typed.
Is this the log that you keep?
Yes.
Okay. And does it contain information that you just told the jury about? The name of the officer, identifiers, the time, the person they're running, and the results?
Yes.
And is this typical? Sometimes they're handwritten, sometimes they're typed?
Correct.
These are what the employees in your unit generate every night.
Yes.
Your Honor, may I, for demonstrative purposes, show these documents to the jury in part?
I have no objection, Your Honor.
All right, then, ladies and gentlemen, these are what's called demonstrative aid to assist the jury in following along with the testimony.
First of all, ma'am, I'm going to show you this one. It has City of Oklahoma at the top, and it says CIU log sheet. Do you see that? There's a hole punched on it, but at the very top, CIU log sheet right there. Do you see that?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
I'm talking to you.
Yes.
You see down here at B41?
Yes.
Let's just take that for example. What does that mean in that column?
That's the unit number. It's Baker 41, and that straight line across is our AW county. Up at the top, it gives what we check, and that first one is AWs, which are municipal courts. The second one is county, which is the county warrants. NCIC is our national computer, those warrants. RG is radiograms that we keep in our unit. DL is the SDL they require us to get sometimes. 2829 is the registration and the tag, whether it's stolen and the registration on it.
For a traffic stop, if there's a car involved?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
PS?
PS is public service, whether we get a telephone call in or we're making one out.
And then VR.
And VR is Varuna.
VR is also called the Varuna or Varuna system sometimes, correct?
Right. We just put VR. It's shorter for that form, and it's Bureau of Records.
When there's a line through that signifies to you what?
That we checked everything.
Okay, that you ran all those different things.
Yes.
Then the next column, I won't move it up to the top, but it's the name, correct?
Correct.
And in my example, this person was William Farrell. And is that an initial over to the side, an L?
Yes.
Okay, so the police officer that was designated with Unit B41 called in and asked for information on an individual named William Farrell?
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yes.
They checked it, and then we get over here. There's a column that says RS.
Race and sex.
So he would be
White male.
white male. The W and the M. The next column's the date of birth.
Yes.
Okay. And then the next column has disposition. And in this case, it says 3CFOK. What does that mean?
That he had 3 Oklahoma County warrants and that they were felonies.
Okay. And the OK is Oklahoma County?
Yes.
CF is criminal felony?
Yes.
And there's 3 of them.
Yes.
I'm not going to go through the other lines, but when you look down like at the last 3 on that chart, there's a little C written beside them. What's the C mean?
They're totally clear of what they asked us to do.
They have no warrants.
Right. Correct.
So this is a log sheet that, and then up at the top of it, there's a date. This one's, it's 5/7. It's hard to see. May 7th of 2014?
Yes.
Okay, and then like over here, there's a 2, and then this one doesn't have a time. What, do you know what that 2 means?
Second shift.
Second shift. So this document doesn't have the actual exact time the request came in, but it shows the date they came in
Yes.
and the shift.
It shows the shift, and that particular one does show the date.
Yes, ma'am.
A lot of times we will put the time, but the time is actually when we start that particular sheet of paper.
It's not, if there's a time on a CIU log, it's not the time the person was run. It's the time that that page was begun because there's 700 calls coming in over the course of the evening.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to show you just this other one. And this is essentially the same information in a different format.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it has the date, and this one is actually page 6, I guess, of the things that happened on May 8th of 14. Is that what that means?
Yes.
All right, over here, it's shift 2. There's a fold there, but then this one has the time, and it's 2010. What does that mean to you?
I'm so bad on that.
8:10 p.m.?
8:10.
That's military time, correct?
Right. It is military.
So that would be the time that page 6 was begun.
Right.
And so the information that's run after that then would be, at least we know it happened, after 8:10 on the evening of May the 8th, 2014.
Yes.
And again, it's the same information. For example, the very first line is unit F21, whatever unit that is.
Yes.
Okay, same thing. Same things across the different places you're checking. You get over here, and this individual that was run was a Kayla Armstrong, it looks like, right?
Correct?
She was a black female.
Yes.
Her date of birth was 12/21/93.
Right.
And when they ran her, they didn't find anything. The CL is for clear.
Right.
That's essentially what it is that your unit does, and this is the documents of that you maintain. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. In this case, ma'am, throughout the months that have gone on since it began, have you been contacted several times and asked to provide several log sheets documenting that type of information in regards to Officer Holtzclaw?
Yes.
Okay. 1 second, please. That's all. Pat's the witness, Your Honor.
All right, any cross-examination?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You can step down. All right, sir, if you will step before me, raise your right hand. All right, if you'll have a seat over here in this chair, once you get situated, pull that microphone right around in front of you. If you would state your name and spell it for us, please.
Joseph B. Hill, Hill.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Hill, until recently, how were you employed?
Through the City of Oklahoma City Police Department.
How long did you work for OCPD, sir?
24 years. Or, my bad. Oh, let me go back. 34 years.
Did you retire?
Yes, I did.
When do you retire?
April.
All right. What did you do during your course? Were you a civilian employee?
No, I was a commissioned officer.
All right. And then did you also have involvement running the administrative part of OCPD, the records division, things like that?
I was the 911 records officer for the City of Oklahoma City.
All right. In that capacity, sir, and I want to turn, well, let me just ask this way. Do you also have field dispatch them on calls, update events, create events, and so forth?
Rick, I think you missed.
Oh, I missed page 92.
Yeah.
Where is page 92 at?
I don't know.
It's after
I
91.
got it.
Oh,
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
You left that in there.
I'm sorry. sorry. Listen, in Rick's defense, he had not planned on reading the parts for Gayland Gieger yesterday. And normally he would read the parts for the judge. And, but yesterday we kind of, I don't want to say last minute, but kind of almost last minute asked him to read the parts for Gayland Gieger. So I'm really sorry, Rick. It was an honest mistake. And also, not only that, Rick doesn't just read from from his phone or from a computer screen. He prints it out and, highlights the things that he's going to read. And so it was a mistake that I don't blame him for at all. I'm so sorry, Rick. I'm sorry. I feel bad. But to be fair, Jennifer was really, she didn't ride your ass like she does with Davey and Richard. So
Yeah, she's scared of me, I think.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. It was only the one time, if I'm not mistaken. So
No, I forgot
just-
to flip the page over. I thought I already had.
okay.
Right.
Just do line 24 over.
All right. In that capacity, sir, and I want to turn. Well, let me just ask it this way. You also have experience in working with the CAD system?
Yes.
Okay. What is the CAD system?
CAD is computer aided dispatch.
Tell the jury a little bit about what that is and what the division does. The people that are involved in CAD, just kind of what it is.
Generally speaking, it's when a call's generated, the CAD system generates the event and they dispatch from there.
So we've heard about people in the crime information unit that police officers can either contact over their radio or via telephone number. Is this something different than those individuals?
Yes.
All right. Is the CAD system also, though, manned by dispatchers?
Yes, it is.
But just a different group, different set of people, different division.
Yes.
All right. What do these dispatchers primarily do, and why are they talking with police officers?
As far as talking to police officers, they're radio dispatchers. They communicate with the units out in the field, dispatch them on calls, update events, create events, and so forth.
So if a 911 call comes in to the 911 station, a dispatcher would dispatch a police officer?
If it's police related, yes.
Of course, it wouldn't be if it was something else. If it's someone who was sick or something like that, it would go to EMSA. Fair enough. How about like on traffic stops? If a police officer is going to stop someone for a traffic violation, would they contact the CAD, and if so, why?
If it's done over the radio, the radio dispatch will go ahead and enter the event into the system, the CAD system.
Okay. And so the police officer would call and say, I'm making a traffic stop, or how would the exchange typically take place in your experience?
Typically, it's over the radio. They'll call and say, I'm on traffic or whatever it might be, and the dispatcher will then generate the event.
And when that happens, what is it? What is it that the CAD dispatcher actually does?
Types in the command line, starts the incident as far as date and time specifies, as far as if the location given and so forth.
And so they're not only in communication with the officer verbally over the radio, but they're also then entering things into the computer database?
Yes.
Okay. And are those records that are typed into the computer database, are they maintained?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Now, the jury's heard about the Varuna database for the actual police reports and things like that. Is this different than the Varuna database?
Yes, it is.
Okay. This documents simply the stops that are made and where officers are at a given time, or if they are dispatched to a location. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. If a report is generated, the officer types in what he did on that or hand writes it out, and sometimes it's typed up and an official report is made. That goes into the Varuna database,
If a case number is issued,
right?
it's linked the case number with the CAD event.
Well, and that's a good point. Okay. The CAD database, though, you can't pull up the actual police reports that were generated in that case in a CAD system. That's a different thing.
True.
Now, the number that if If it was assigned and a report was generated, they've heard about that. The actual case number, though, would correspond to the CAD system, so you would know?
Yes.
Okay, so on a CAD printout, then, if an officer were to initiate some event, then it will be recorded where that was, or at least where the officer said he was, the time that started, and then what else would be eventually put into the CAD database to document what happened there.
Any comments or anything that's added from the field or from the dispatcher over the radio, or comments, stuff like that.
Okay, so at some point, if the call came to a conclusion, either that officer finished what they were, I guess the officer finishes what he's doing. Does he then recontact the CAD dispatcher and say, I'm done, or how does it get closed out?
Well, there's two ways of doing it. He could close it out himself, enter a disposition and close it out himself, or the dispatcher could go ahead and close it out for him.
Okay. Now explain what you mean. I think I understand. If the dispatcher closes it out, he would call a dispatcher and say, whatever it is, whatever code, but I'm done, I'm leaving.
Yeah, I'm finished with the call. Close it out.
Okay. You said he could close it out himself, though. How would he do that?
He uses his MDC.
And tell us what that means.
MDC is mobile data computer.
Is that the computer in the police cars?
Yes, it is.
All right. So there's a way for him to make some entry on the computer to say, I'm done and I'm ready to do something else.
Yes.
Wouldn't be what he actually says, but that's what it means.
That's what it means. Yes.
Can an officer generate a CAD event from his MDC, from his computer, or does he have to have the dispatcher begin the event?
He can generate an event in his MDC. Yes.
So he could do that himself as well?
Yes.
All right. Is that very common in your experience? They generate it themselves?
Not very common, but it does happen.
Okay. Is it common for an officer, though, to close out an event when he's done just by doing something on his computer, not actually contacting the CAD dispatcher?
It depends on the individual, how proficient or how he likes to use his computer.
Either way is acceptable.
Yes.
And either way is done?
Yes.
All right. A situation like this, Mr. Hill, an officer goes out and he contacts on the radio a dispatcher and says, I'm out, I'm going in, there are people fighting in the street. I'm going to step out, see what I can do. Okay. He alerts the dispatcher, and there's some code, I'm sure he says what he's doing. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Do they maintain radio communication while all that is going on? Or is there something built in for the dispatcher to know what's happening? Or is the dispatcher then dependent upon the officer then initiating contact back and saying what's going on?
There's the radio that could be used by both the dispatcher and the officer in the field.
Okay. So the officer obviously is going to have a radio with him if he's wearing the uniform the way that you expect them to be?
Yes.
So that if he's out away from his car, he can contact them again?
Yes.
Likewise, the dispatcher has the ability to contact the officer back and say, hey, are you okay? What's going on, if the need be?
Yes.
Okay. Is there some limit built into the system? If a dispatcher gets a call from an officer, or the officer says, I'm stepping away from my police car for whatever reason, Is there something in the system that is built in for a dispatcher then to check on an officer if they don't hear for some period of time?
Yeah, there's a example, a traffic stop. There was a 20-minute time or warning that comes up.
And if the 20 minutes goes by, then there's something on the dispatcher's computer that alerts. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then if that alarm goes off, or that alert, I should say, goes off with the dispatcher's computer, what's the dispatcher supposed to do?
He'll check his welfare.
All right. And 20 minutes is what has been set by whoever makes those decisions. Fair enough?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to show you a document, again for demonstrative purposes. Do you recognize what this printout reflects?
Yes. It's an incident detail report.
Okay. Is the CAD system like a Windows system that has a lot of different windows in it and different screens to enter different things, that type of thing, if you're actually sitting at it, typing at it?
Yes.
But if you actually wanted to generate a report of a CAD event that was started by a dispatcher and then eventually ended by a dispatcher and or an officer, if I said, can you give me a report of that? Is that what that document basically reflects, that information?
Yes.
All right. Your Honor, again, if I could publish for demonstrative purposes only at this point.
I have no objection, Your Honor.
All right. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is not evidence. It's what's called a demonstrative aid to assist you along with the testimony of the witness. You may publish.
Thank you, Your Honor. The top, it says incident detail report. You've been calling it CAD but this is what it is. If there's a CAD call, an officer says, I'm going out and an event is created, it's going to be called an incident detail report. Is that fair?
That's the report. Yes.
Okay. I'm not going to go through the entire thing with you, Mr. Hill. I think you've testified generally to the information it contains. But you see the incident date and the incident number there?
Yes.
Okay. What's the incident number?
The incident number is an agency-driven number from the CAD system. Okay.
The jury a little while ago heard about case numbers that are assigned with OCPD with if it happened in 2014, a 2014 number, a dash, and then other numbers. And I think she said there were as many as 200,000 a year generated. Is the incident number something different than the OCPD case number?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Are there more CAD events created than actual OCPD case numbers given?
Yes.
Okay. Not all CAD events result in a report being filed and those types of things?
That's true.
Okay. That's the number that's created is about the computer that creates that number.
Yes.
All right. The incident date may be self-explanatory, but this one, for example, is 3/25 of 2014. And then is that military time after that?
Yes, it is.
8:58:39.
Yes.
Okay. With that screen still, you see the problem? It says traffic stop. What's self-explanatory? Is that a traffic stop?
Yeah, it was coded as a traffic stop.
All right. Then there's some other information on there, but when I go down, like if I look right about where my finger is, you see the incident location. Do you see that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's got Northeast 15th Street, North Kelham Avenue. What is that? Just basically an intersection, in this case, documenting essentially the location of a traffic stop?
Yes.
That's what that refers to.
As an intersection, yes.
Okay. There's other things on here, and I don't like latitude and UMT. What's that stuff talking about?
UMT is another mapping coordinating system.
All right. And is that mapping the police car or is that mapping something else?
That's mapping something else.
Okay. When I look at the next page and it looks like there's some times and things like this, do you know what those are referring to, sir?
That's the data and time that it was inputted into the system.
All right. And then down here it says incident closed. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. 325 and it's now saying 2122, so that would be 922, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this incident began, according to this data system, it was entered into the computer at 9:58:39.
8:58.
I'm sorry, 8:58:39.
Yes.
And this one was closed at 9:22:06. What are those numbers and that Kristen M. Powell? What does that mean?
That's an ID.
Is that a dispatcher?
Yes, it is.
Does that tell you then that this case was closed by a dispatcher, not the officer in his police car?
Yes, it does.
Okay. If it was closed by the officer in his police car, would it still have the date and time?
Yes.
But it would say something different at the end of it, correct?
Yes.
All right. And there's additional information and codes and things like that in here. But essentially, that's what documents as far as the nature of what the officer said he was doing in this case for a demonstrative aid, a traffic stop. It also demonstrates the time it began and the time that it ended, correct?
Yes.
Is there something on here that indicates which officer it is?
Personnel assigned.
All right, let me show that. That would be on the second page of this document, correct?
Correct.
And in this case, the officer that was making personnel assigned to Charlie 45, and then it has DH 1782, Daniel Holtzclaw, correct?
Correct.
That tells you that that's the police officer that was on this CAD incident.
Yes.
All right. During the course of this investigation, you're familiar with the investigation of Officer Holtzclaw, are you not?
Yes.
Were you asked by detectives to provide various different reports, crime incident reports, on different dates and different times throughout the months that you were still employed at the Oklahoma City Police Department?
Crime incident reports?
Yes, sir. CAD information.
Yes. CAD information. Yes.
Okay. Additionally, sir, and were you and you provided those throughout the course of this whenever you were asked to give detectives the information. Fair enough?
Yes.
Are you also familiar with what's called and been referred to as the acronym AVL?
Yes.
What's AVL?
Automatic vehicle location.
Okay, and what is the AVL system?
Its AVL system is a basically it's a GPS that tracks the vehicle.
And have you had some responsibility in maintaining and being involved in the operation of the AVL system?
Yes.
How long have we had, if you know, GPS AVL on cars?
Went online June the 10th of 08.
So pushing about 8 years so far, right?
Yes, sir.
coming up on it?
Yeah.
What does the AVL do? Kind of describe for us a little bit about the way it's set up and what it's intended to do and how it works.
How it works, you mean from the time you receive it until it gets through the CAD system?
No, not that detail. I'm sorry. What I mean is just basically why do we have it? What do we use it for? Those types of things.
It's a tool that they use. It's also used as it can be used as a recommendation for recommendations.
Looking at vehicle activity and what officers are doing, things like that.
Yes.
That's what you mean by recommendation?
Yes.
Okay. Is it similar? And I'm sure there's differential analogs from a technical standpoint, but is it similar to like GPS on your phone when you know where you're at and if they're tied in, and is it the same type of system? Basically it sets up to locate you if there's any activity going on in that the program says register.
Yes.
Okay. What are the parameters, if any, about the location of police cars the way the AVL is up?
There
What does it register? When does it register where you are? How does it register that as far as noting it, stuff like that?
the parameters are if you're moving, it's every 5 seconds. If you're standing still, it's got a parameter of 5 minutes. It's also got if you move 25 meters, also if you change status from the mobile side. And if there's one more, let me think. If you lose communications.
Okay, and the GPS, I want to make sure it's on the vehicle. I'm sorry. The AVL is on the vehicle itself, not actually on something that the officer carries as well. Is that correct?
That's true.
All right. So basically it's tracking not where the police officer is, but where the police car is.
Where the vehicle's located. Yes.
Okay. Can an officer turn it off or turn it on?
Physically turn it off or turn it on?
Well, I mean, if I'm in the car and the car is rolling, is it on automatically, or is there some way to have the car moving and the AVL not know it?
You have to log into the system.
Tell me what that means.
You have a login that the officers are given, and they type it in the computer, and it sends a transmission in to verify that's a valid unit or a valid user. And then it logs it into the system.
Okay. So you can drive a police car without being logged into the system, and therefore the AVL would not be operational. I mean, would not record where you are.
Yes.
All right. So it's dependent on the officer to stay logged in for the AVL system to work.
Yes.
All right. You told me a few moments ago that it registered every 5 seconds that the vehicle's moving. Then I think you said every 5 minutes that the vehicle's not moving, absent something else, absent some of those other things that you talked about. Basically, I just want to talk about whether the car is moving or whether the car is not moving.
Okay.
All right. With those parameters, how does it measure, first of all, the speed of the car? What is it documented in?
It's marked as a speed.
Okay. And is it miles per hour? Is it?
I was told yesterday it was in knots.
It's actually in knots. Okay. Do you know the multiplier factor is Okay, do you know what the multiplier factor is for miles per hour versus knots? Like 1 mile per hour is how many knots?
Equals to 1.1 and digits.
Okay, so 1.1 miles per hour with a few digits after is 1 knot?
Yeah, it is 1 mile per hour. Let's see. 1.1 is, no, rephrase that.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is it that 1.1 mile an hour equals 1 knot? 1.1 in digits equals 1 knot.
Can I say 1 mile equals 1.1?
If that's correct, yes.
Yeah.
So 1 mile an hour means 1.1 knot.
Let me think about it this a minute.
Okay.
Oh, this is frustrating for me. I've forgotten about all this confusion. Oh, that's okay under your scars. I understand. Um, this is frustrating because, first of all, he's saying, Joe Hill is saying that he just learned the day before that it was actually knots and not miles per hour. And now neither one of these dummies can figure out. I mean, I couldn't do it either because I can't do numbers at all. But I'm not being required to know any of this shit either. But if I were required to know, I would know. I would have that in my brain, in my memory. There's no way I would be caught looking dumb on the witness stand like both of the like Joe Hill is right now, and the way Gayland Gieger has this whole time. And instead of Gieger leading the witnesses like he always does, he should, I think, I'm not an attorney, but he should just be asking a question and letting the professional or the, however you want to say it, let him answer the question. Instead, he's trying to he asks a question, but then instead of letting him just answer, he's confusing, in my opinion, he's confusing the jury with all of his, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, what does that mean? Wait, let me all that. And that's, to me, very confusing in a very serious trial. Okay.
Yeah,
I just
Glenn
needed to.
Croy, the reason they're doing it in knots and not miles per hour, the AVL system is based on the AIS system that's used for maritime traffic. It's how boats avoid each other on the ocean. It's also how various rescue agencies and authorities can locate the last known position of a vessel. That's why it's in knots. Whoever made a version for this never thought to make a version that measured in miles per hour.
No, they're not on
It,
boats. They're
yeah.
in patrol
Well,
cars.
there are some police officers that are
Well,
on
yeah,
boats. You
that's
know,
true.
if you live anywhere on the coast, they have
That's true.
divisions that are on boats, and those boats measure in knots for their speed. As far as converting from a knot to a mile per hour, he says 1.1. The actual number is 1.15078, if I remember right. And that's important because Gieger here in just a little bit tries to make it sound like regardless of what number of mile per hour you're going, there's not a big difference in the speed and knots. It's just like no big thing. It's measured in tenths. Well, that's not true. You know, if you're going 45 knots on that AVL system, you're going over 50 miles an hour. You're going 51.7 something. Well, that's a huge difference. That's a 6 mile per hour difference. So, depending on what city street you are and what the speed limit is, it makes a difference in how fast they were traveling.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Um, so no, I just typed it in the chat, but quickly, and I didn't spell properly. But no, this was in on land in a patrol car in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Glenn. Uh, but like Rick said, it does matter because they're these the detectives and this prosecutor. They will twist. I guess is the best way to say it. They will twist exactly. They'll twist any kind of document or testimony or AVL map. They'll twist it in any way that they think benefits them and makes Daniel Holtzclaw look guiltier, looks more guilty, or however. So anyway, it's they use the and I've mentioned it before. They use the term knots and miles per hour interchangeably throughout this entire trial with all these different accusers. And it's really frustrating because, like I said before, those seconds or split seconds or nanoseconds or whatever you want to call them, they do matter, especially as intensely as the prosecutor and the detectives work to try to make him look as guilty as possible based on AVL alone, which that's a whole other topic. But anyway, I had to vent that because it really frustrated me. It's just, and then Scott Adams is going to say, Judge, I'll just stipulate to whatever the not conversion is. It is what it is. I don't think it's any. Yeah, it is any big deal, you dumbass.
Yes, it is. It's a huge deal. Like I
Well,
said, it depends on the speed limit of the street they're driving down.
Yes. And so for the defense attorney to say that, where I feel like he's getting ready to say, I don't think it's any big deal or something to that effect. He doesn't finish, but it's a little infuriating, if I must say. Rick, there's going to be one more correction coming up. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, I
forgot about it.
remembered it.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's just a word, and most of the time I don't care about just words, but if it could change the context of what's being asked or said, I feel like I want to make sure it's the right word. So, okay, here we go. We're almost done. Judge, I'll stipulate to whatever the not conversion is. Is it what it is what it is. I don't think it's any.
Let me ask it maybe one more time.
All right.
A better way. Basically, it's close, right?
It's close.
It's not a big change between miles per hour and knots, especially.
Yes.
When you're talking speeds 1 to 16 miles an hour, it's not going to change a whole lot.
Not a whole lot.
I guess we need a sailor in here to help us out.
Something, yeah. But in any event, this system is set up to measure in knots?
Yes.
Okay, now then. You also said if the car's stationary, it only registers every 5 minutes.
Yes.
If it's at 0 speed.
Yes.
Whether it's knots or mile an hour, 0 still means 0, right?
True.
Okay. So why is it set up that way? Why don't we just have real time? Why don't we just have active every second hitting on here?
It's a data factor. It's expensive to maintain and archive.
Basically, if we had it on every second real time, it would cause a whole lot more storage problems and it cost a whole lot more money for the city.
Yes.
So a decision was made that if the car is moving 5 miles, 5 seconds, it is satisfactory for what we want to use this for, and every 5 minutes at 0 is satisfactory.
Yes.
Is it possible then that a car could register at 0 on the AVL system and it's not going to hit one time, but what's the maximum amount of time, the way you understand it? The car, yeah.
Rick, sorry. I just feel like this is important. It says on line 5, and it's going to hit one time. I think you threw in the word not, and it's not going to hit, but it's
I may have.
okay. Can you
Okay.
just,
Yep.
thank you.
Is it possible then that a car could register at 0 on the AVL system and it's going to hit one time? But what's the maximum amount of time, the way you understand it, the car actually could be at that location at 0 given the parameters of the program?
If the car is there for 5 minutes and it's 0 speed, it would be 0
It's going to hit once.
once.
Okay, and it won't register again until it starts moving?
And another parameter is met. Yes.
Until if 5 minutes, so it could be there for 5 more minutes after that registration before it hits 0 again.
Yes.
If it starts moving, it will hit less than within that 5 minutes. It's going to hit when it starts moving.
True.
So a car really could be at one location for 9 minutes and theoretically 59 seconds and show only 1 point.
That's true.
Okay. So there's a little bit of, there's 4 minutes and 59 seconds, give or take, on the outside as to when it starts moving again.
Yes.
Okay. Similarly, I'm going to show you, sir, I'm going to put up State's Exhibit number 83 that's been introduced into evidence. And I'll put it up here to orient you. That's the Spring Lake. This apartment building right here is the Spring Lake briefing station. Will you take my word for it?
Yes.
Okay. For purposes of what this is showing on the AVL, the jury's heard a little bit of testimony about this, but when I see it looks like first of all, there's red lines. Do you see that on the map?
Yes.
Do you know what the red lines are?
Can you zoom out?
I can try.
Okay.
Do you know what they are?
They're street segments.
I didn't hear what you said.
Street segments.
Okay. What are street segments on the AVL system?
Basically just center line streets.
Is it that the AVL system has mapped the streets of Oklahoma City and that's where those red lines are doing? Let me do that again. Is it that the AVL system has mapped the streets of Oklahoma City and that's what those red lines are doing, or going down the center of the streets essentially? That's the way it's mapped?
Basically, yes.
Okay. Now, I know when I look at it, for example, there's areas on States number 83 that show houses that appear in neighborhoods. Would you agree over in this area?
Yes.
Okay. The AVL mapping doesn't go into the grass or the fields, those types of things. Is that right?
That's true.
Okay. If I was, for example, parked in the driveway where that red car is, and my AVL hit, would it show me in that driveway, or where would it actually show me being if I was in a police car with the AVL on and 0 for 5 minutes?
Well, it snaps to the street segment or center line.
Okay, and is that why when we look at this a little closer, I see those green dots next to the letters and the numbers?
Yes.
Okay, that's the center line.
Yes.
Okay, how accurate is it in regards to, for example, this data point right here that's on this center line? See?
Uh-huh.
Okay. It's saying 1:52:58 a.m., 18 knots. How accurate is it that we know it was exactly right there, or is it within a range?
It's within an area.
Okay, and do you know how big that area is generally?
Within I've been told 1,200 feet.
Within 1,200 feet?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not an exact right where you are for sure 100%. It's just mapping that we know at least you're close to this area at this time.
That's true.
Is that fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay. And in this case, again, at this moment, it's showing here, and it's showing about 18 knots, or it's showing 18 knots. Is that fair?
Uh-huh.
I want to compare these two if I can see these two.
Uh-huh.
Okay, to Charlie 45. It's the same police car, would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. The date's the same, 6/18/2014. This one is showing 1:52:52, and then the one north of it is showing 1:52:58, showing 22 knots. And then 6 seconds later, it's showing 18 knots. You with me?
Uh-huh.
What does that tell you based upon looking at that?
He's driving down the street.
Okay, and as far as our location of within 1,200 feet, is the fact that we're having 2 points that close together in a logical direction within a logical distance, say that it's probably pretty close to where he was. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay, and if I slide it on down, I think you can see, for example, this point going north on Prospect, between comparing this point and this point, you got it at 1:57:56 a.m., 24 knots. And then it looks farther north, 1:58:01. So it looks like it's rolled over about 4 or 5 seconds, and it's hitting 22 knots. Do you see?
Yes.
Does that seem consistent generally to the parameters that you've testified to? And does it appear that the AVL system was working at least at the time this was taken as far as Unit 2 Charlie 45 goes?
Yes, it does.
Shows he's going north.
Yeah, shows he's going north at Prospect.
Okay, just before 2 in the morning. Fair enough? 1:58?
1:58 a.m.
Okay, and I'm going to keep using this map for purposes of my questions to you. I'm going to move over here. There's no data points as far as a vehicle on that part, that little residential street. Would you agree?
Yes.
But there is that red line that is the map, the street segment mapping. Okay, if I drove my car into a field like this, okay, either drove across it longer than 5 seconds or drove it there and stopped, Where would you expect, with your understanding of the AVL system, to show, assuming the system was on, that I was? Would it show me in the field, or would it show me somewhere else?
It would snap to the closest street.
Okay. So even if I was parked here typing a police report or doing something off the main road, if I was there for more than 5 minutes, it might show up over here if I was closer to that street.
True.
During the course of the investigation of Mr. Holtzclaw, were you asked to provide a variety, and was the AVL unit asked to provide a variety of different maps?
Oh, yes.
And were you involved in that?
Yes.
And did you provide those maps to the detectives?
Yes, I did.
Just 1 second, Your Honor, please. I think that's all, Mr. Hill. Thank you. Pass the witness.
Any cross-examination?
I don't have any questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You can step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're excused.
Okay, that was talking away and I was still muted. That was the AVL testimony that I kind of thought would be beneficial for all of you to see, or well, hear rather. They did have a map. They did have an exhibit that I could have shown you. All it was is it's basically just an outline of an area of where the Spring Lake Division, which is where Daniel's, I don't know what you call it, not headquarters, but where his, what would it be called, Cherie? Where he reported, where he got his, information from daily, all of his, assignments and things like that. It was called Spring Lake Division. And all he was showing was and I can show it to you at another time, but all he was showing was the area of where Daniel had left the Spring Lake Division on June 18th of 2014 after his shift was over. And then that whole thing leads into the Jamie Liggins testimony or story, case, whatever you want to call it, because that was the night that he he's looking shiny. That was for the night that he did stop Jamie Liggins after he was off duty and after all of his equipment was turned off, and didn't call it in and all those things. So without saying too much more about that, I will just go ahead and say that we talked about it this weekend, and we decided that we're going to go ahead and start the trial over, basically. And we're going to go, rather than following Bates's timeline in his podcast, which is what we've been doing, we're going to start the trial and just run through the trial in sequential order of how everything was heard and seen and testified to and whatnot. So that's kind of what we decided to do. And I know for some of you, it may be repetitive, but I just don't think that there's any such thing as too much information, stuff you've already heard. Excuse me, because every time, and Cherie and I have been researching this together for 5 years, close to 5 years. Every time we read a trial testimony or another document, we learn something new ourselves. So I just think at this point it's going to be beneficial with as many new people that we have been able to bring into the case. I think it will be a good idea. We think it would be a good idea to start over and, uh, start the series, redo the series, and get back to the beginning, and share how it all began. Um, if you want to, because we were going to do Shardarian Hill and then uh, just on. Yes, I know. Um, if you want to, listen to the Shardarian Hill and Adara Gardner stories, we did cover that. Although we didn't have all the witness testimony at that point, but we did cover that quite a while ago, and I meant to put the links in the description. I didn't even put any links in the description, but maybe, I don't know if Liam or Rick or somebody, Cherie, can grab the links from way back when from Shardarian Hill and Adara Gardner. If you want to, you can put those in the chat, or I'll try to get a description in the links in the description, since I forgot them. Anyway, that's what we're going to do. I hope that everybody, at least just Don, is like, good, maybe now I'll know what the F's going on. Yes, exactly. So we'll I think it's time to do that, because it's taken us quite a long time to get this far as it is in the Inside the Wrongful Conviction of Daniel Holtzclaw series. So we'll begin a new series. I don't know what we'll call it, but we will start the trial from the beginning. Beyond that, I think. Okay. Ooh, I almost hit the wrong button there. So anyway, I don't have anything else to say today, or to offer or comment about, really. I don't know, Cherie, if you have any final comments that you'd like to make based on what we heard today.
Well, I'll say again what I said yesterday. I'm really disappointed in Daniel's attorney's failure to question any of these three people, but especially Joe Hill, because he could have gotten some important questions on the record about how the AVL, like, it's not always, what's the word, accurate, and what was the other? Oh, and about when he was asked to pull these, because Kim likes to say that they pulled them afterward, the AVL, after they got the stories from the accusers. But there's some evidence to show that wasn't always the case.
Right. Yeah,
So,
thank you for bringing that up again. Yeah, those are very valid points, that Scott Adams didn't cross-examine any of these witnesses. And Rick made a good point about that yesterday. If you want to restate that point yesterday about especially Joe Hill and the technical, he was testifying to technical things, or do you know what you remember what we were talking about? Maybe not. Cherie and I were bitching about it back and forth about how we were pissed off that Scott Adams didn't cross-examine, especially Joe Hill. And you did bring up a really good point. Rick brought up a really good point, that it will, he was testifying, Joe Hill was testifying to how the process works and is ran and all that stuff. And not necessarily about any one particular, AVL map or whatever. And that is a valid point. It really was about the technical part. I don't know if I'm using the right word, but the technical part of it. Okay. Yeah. The technical part of it. But well, since when is a topic? I mean, cross-examination, if I'm not mistaken, he can question on anything he wants to regarding the topic. And so I think, like Cherie said, he should have asked. In one of the trial testimonies, Detective Davis says that, well, it's not always accurate. Sometimes it's glitchy. I've been told sometimes it's glitchy. Well,
Yep.
we don't think there's any room for glitchy in these AVL maps.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
by
Rick.
what is it, like 1,200 feet or something like that?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Sorry, yeah, I just had to take a drink. Yeah, and it should, again, when somebody's life and freedom is on the line, glitchy is unacceptable. Especially where this AVL is concerned. Like I said,
I would have to go mark it out. But if you
yeah,
look at the AVL map that they put up, I can't remember who was testifying, but they pointed out behind the school and in the field.
right.
I would be very interested to know exactly what the distance is between the end of that cul-de-sac and to the center of that street on the other side of that field. Is that within 1,200 feet?
I don't remember, but I know that Brian Bates, because he covered Sherry Ellis's case quite extensively. Well, he did all of them, but Sherry Ellis's case, he actually did all that math. He did. Brian Bates went and mapped that all out from that whole map. And so if you go to Brian Bates' website, and I'm sure I have it downloaded somewhere in my pictures, I just don't know how I would have it named, but Brian Bates did go and did all the math and explained how all of that, distance between the cul-de-sac and, getting to where Ellis said she was taken and assaulted, and then to the street to Miramar, which is just, a few feet further. And he did do all of that. And I believe he even talked about the knots and the difference between the knots and the MPH that's used interchangeably throughout the testimony in this trial. Thank you, Cherie. I appreciate that. I don't even know if I have a playlist for Shardarian Hill. Probably not. But
Yeah,
thank you
and
for
who's
putting that
the
in
other
there.
one that you were looking for? You
Dara
said
Gardner.
2 people.
Dara Gardner. Yeah.
Because I'm scrolling through trying to find them.
Oh, thank you. I just feel like I want to see if I can find. It's probably in my pictures. I just don't know where. I really want to show you this map that Brian Bates did. Oops, if I can spell. I also don't want to keep you guys hanging on all day either. But let me see if I can put my hands on it quickly enough. Okay. I think I'll be able to do this pretty quick. Because it
Yeah, I'm
really
not
is.
seeing a Dara Gardner here.
Oh, okay. Huh. All right. Maybe. I'm seeing all of Bates's pictures I don't see his map though. Maybe it's in the other episode, the wrap up. Cherie, didn't we do an episode of Adara Gardner, some trial testimony?
Yeah, we did. I think the last four, there are four that we haven't done yet in this series of Inside the Wrongful Conviction of Daniel Holtz-Cloud. But before that, we had done a few on Adair Gardner. On each one, I think at least one episode on. I found 3 on Shardarian at least, and
Okay.
so I'm sure I'm looking for Sarita right now, and then I'll look for Adair. At least get one of them in there,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and so if people, that's it. If people want to go and check it out and see what we've already done for them, then you can do that. Okay, I don't know if you can see this very well. So there's a key. Bates has a key here that he has made where he has put all of this information, all of this, what's it called? Marking, I guess. I don't know how else to say it. He's put all these markings in here and he's got a key for them, and explains what all of these different things, all these different colors mean. And let me see how. So he thinks that, okay, so this is his kind of his bigger view of the where he's done some he's done the mapping, the footwork basically. So I don't know if you can see that or not, Rick, close enough.
Yeah,
or
I
not.
see it.
Okay.
I see it. I'm
So-
looking at it.
Okay, all right. So he's done all this map work here and all this footwork that he's done. Now, Oklahoma, the state didn't do this. The detectives didn't do all of this, like Brian Bates did. Of course they didn't, because it's easier for them to just say, "Oh, he hopped the curb over here, took her over here," which is where I guess Ellis showed the detectives that he took her to sexually assault her. And this is, by the way, the same place where Kayla Lyles claims she was taken. Exact same place. And then all the houses that we talked about that are over here. So this is where they claim they were taken. And then he's got all of his writing is hard to read, but he's got all of these footwork that he did. I don't know how else to say it. He did walked it off to try to, get the footage and all of that stuff so that he could, figure out exactly, what the miles were, or not the miles, but the feet and the yards, whatever, and how long it would take based on miles per hour, during all of these different events. So,
Okay, wait a minute. 36 feet and 364 was that straight line, right?
the purple line.
Which would be 400.
He's got it written out over here in this next one, or this, Nope. Okay, he's got it all written out here. So this is the part where he's at the park. The different miles per hour, but according to Joe Hill, they counted in knots. So, but when you look at what Brian Bates did, the work that he did, versus the fact that the state didn't do shit like this, they didn't do any of this. They just gave you said, "Oh, this is what happened. He hopped the curb. He drove her to this building, raped her there for, I can't remember how many minutes," she says. Kayla Lyles said 5 to 10 minutes at one point, and another point she said 20 to 30 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, that's those are the those are the that's the work that Brian Bates did to get the accurate and realistic time of that it took from Daniel to hop the curb, get through the park and over to Miramar when he got back onto Miramar to to head back to wherever he was going. At this time he was still on shift. So anyway, it's just really beneficial to check out the holtzclawtrial.com and look at the home pages of each of the accusers, because you'll get information like this from Brian Bates, which is, I don't know, to me it's invaluable because he's the one who did the footwork. He was the investigator for Daniel's defense team. Although I don't feel like his work was really utilized very well or very much at all. So, because they should have shown that at the trial. I mean, that should have been evidence from Scott Adams at the trial. But that's just another example of how the state used miles per hour and knots interchangeably with the AVL. And it was very disingenuous, to say the least. So anyway, thank you guys, Cherie and Rick, for getting all those links and stuff in there. I really appreciate it. And I think
it would. Sorry.
Go ahead. No. Please go ahead.
While I was thinking of it, I think it would be helpful in your spare time. I don't know how to do that stuff, but I could probably learn to make okay, these videos are about Regina, these are about Adara,
the playlist.
Something like that. Well, it'd be easier to look for them because I think there's more than what I found about Adara and.
Right, there is, and I've been putting this series inside the wrongful conviction of Daniel Holtzclaw series. I've been putting those in playlists, but not really very consistently, I guess I should say. Excuse me. I know there's a playlist for Tabitha Barnes, and I think not Sherry Ellis, but anyway, there are a few playlists that I had started working on. I just need to be better about it. So anyway, yeah, you're right. And that's fine. You don't need to put any more in, Cherie. I appreciate you doing those that you've done. That's great. So that's the plan. That we're going to go ahead and restart the trial from the beginning and follow the trial timeline as opposed to Bates's timeline that he did in his podcast. So again, Cherie, thank you for grabbing all those links for those different episodes. And Rick, do you have any final comments or things that you want to mention?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. All right. Well, if that's all that you folks have, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to call this one, and we will be back soon with how we're going to hopefully with a good start about how we're going to start this trial over. So please be patient with us as we, work together to try to get this figured out. And I don't think next week we will be reading any transcripts for sure. We'll probably be doing sort of an introduction to this whole case, just so that, those of you who are new to it or who need a refresher can understand from the beginning how this all started. So I think that's where we'll leave it. And until next time, peace out.